Hi, I'm Kathy. Today in the kitchen I'll be showing you how to grow some sprouts and how to make a whole meal using different kinds of sprouts. I'm rinsing off my garbanzo sprouts for the first recipe here. And this is basically how you grow certain kinds of sprouts. There's basically two techniques for growing sprouts, either growing them in a jar or growing them in dirt. To grow sprouts in a jar, all you have to do is put whatever bean or seed in a jar that you're going to sprout, soak them in water overnight, and then the next morning drain the sprouts and rinse them out really well, and then leave them inverted somewhere so extra water can drain out and air can get into the sprouts. And you have to rinse the beans or seeds that you're sprouting usually 2 or 3 times a day. But with larger beans, whether they be garbanzo beans or kidney beans or pinto beans, you need to rinse them more often because these have more starch in them and they tend to get bad faster. Let me just turn the oil on here because I'm going to show you how to make some falafels, which are a Mid-Eastern dish, using sprouted or germinated garbanzo beans instead of just plain garbanzo beans. It's actually much healthier to germinate or sprout your seeds, whether you're going to use them raw or cook them. For large seeds or beans like garbanzos or pintos, you do need to cook them a tiny bit, whether it's steaming them, lightly boiling, or deep frying as I'm going to. Just soaking the beans and rinsing them a tiny bit every day will cause them to germinate. And if you look closely at these, you can see that they're starting to germinate, which means they're starting to grow these little white tips on them. And that means the chemical structure within the seed is totally changed. Sprouting isn't a new idea at all. It's been around that we know of for probably about 5,000 years. To make these garbanzos, to make the falafels, I'm going to grind the garbanzos. I'm doing it in a food process. There. That should be ground up enough. Put this down here. There. As you can see, the beans should get ground up really finely, and the little bit of starch in the bean actually forms kind of a sticky batter. And that's what is the falafel. Falafels are traditionally made in the Mideast with what are called fava beans. And it's interesting to note that fava beans are grown here in the United States, but we hardly ever see them as a food. They're usually grown as a cover crop, meaning they plant a few acres of it to enrich the soil, and then after the crop grows and the beans do form, they plow the whole thing under. It's kind of a way of fertilizing the ground, which is not bad, but fava beans are also nutritious for people to eat. This is a 1/4 cup of fresh chopped parsley, which will go into the falafels. And then I'm going to add a lot of spices, and they are 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 2 teaspoons ground coriander, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon asafoetida or 3 cloves of crushed garlic, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon turmeric, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And that just gets mixed in very well, and then I'll make the falafels. As I was saying before I started grinding the garbanzo beans, we've known about sprouts as far as not us personally, but mankind has known about sprouts for at least 5,000 years that we know of. The earliest writings about sprouts were contained in Chinese herbal manuals, and they listed sprouts as a cure for, or a remedy to cure or prevent all kinds of maladies ranging from rheumatism to muscle cramps to spotted skin and even damaged hair. And now through modern science that we know more about the vitamin content of sprouts and how the sprouting process creates more enzymes which basically help to digest the amino acids in the protein of the seed or nut, and all the other chemical changes that take place in the sprouting process, it's easy to understand how sprouts are so nutritious that they could almost be thought of as a medicine. Okay, now that these are mixed together well, the next step in making falafels is just to make tiny little patties, usually just with your hands. Usually make them about 1.5 or 2 inches in diameter and anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. 1/2 inch is a tiny bit too thick. And then drop them into heated oil to deep fry. And one nice thing about the germinated garbanzo beans, as opposed to just garbanzo beans that have been soaked, or bean flour, as is traditionally used in the Mideast, is that you don't have to cook the beans as long as you normally would to be sure that they'll be able to be digested. When large beans like garbanzos or pintos or kidney beans, the larger starchier beans, are germinated, they only need to be cooked, whether it's steamed, boiled, or fried like this, for between 10 or 15 minutes. So by germinating, you not only get the nutritional benefits, but you can help to save energy as well. I'm just going to deep fry a few of them because you can do many, many batches of these. But to give you an idea, as you can see, they fry up very, very quickly. And you just need to fry them until they turn a golden brown. And usually, I like to flip them once in the middle. You know, it's interesting to note, I was mentioning the Chinese herbals, or herbal books that listed sprouts as a medicine. When sprouts were first written about in the West, they were also written about from a medical viewpoint as well. There was a Dr. McBride who wrote a whole book speculating that sprouts helped to prevent scurvy. Now this was at a time when shipfuls of sailors were dying from scurvy, which is basically a shortage, or what do you call that? Not having enough vitamin C in the system. And Captain Cook read Dr. McBride's speculative paper and decided to put it into action. So on his journeys, Captain Cook fed his crews a drink called wort, which was what Captain McBride recommended, or Dr. McBride recommended. And what the wort was 1 part of malt powder, which is made from sprouted barley, to 3 parts of water. And in all the 3 years of 2 of his journeys, none of Captain Cook's crew was lost to scurvy. And for that, Captain Cook got the Royal Society's highest award, the Copley Medal, not for his wide travels or discoveries, but because he had the highest record of no fatalities because of scurvy on his ships. Now the falafels just get deep fried until they turn a real pretty golden brown like that. Then these are usually served in a sandwich. So let me make a dressing real quick, also featuring sprouts, but a different kind. These sprouts are made with smaller seeds, so they don't really require cooking. It's not necessary. I usually like to make a mix of seeds in my kitchen from time to time, and this particular one has mung beans, and the red beans or azuki beans, and lentils. But you can really sprout any kind of little tiny seed in a mixture for this particular dressing. I usually like to make at least 3 different kinds of seeds in this mix. I've got 1 cup of the seed mix, and to that I'm going to add 1 cup of some kind of a mixed vegetable juice, 1/2 cup of avocado, 1/2 cup of salsa, 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast, and 1/4 tablespoon of miso. This is optional. If you don't want to add salt to your diet, then you can leave this out. And this gets blended to make a quick dressing. You see, that makes a real quick dressing. Now this dressing gets served with the falafel on top of some sort of a salad green and inside of a Mideastern bread called a pita bread, which I'm sure you've seen. They're also sometimes called pocket breads. I'll show you how to make a sandwich in a minute. First of all, let me show you a little bit about what I'm making salad with. I'm going to use a combination of sprouts to make the salad. The sprouts back here, which are sunflower seed greens and are grown in dirt, as well as some sprouts that have been grown in jars. But first, let me show you how you can grow your own sprouts at home, whether you live in an apartment or a house. To grow the sprouts that grow up in the soil, all you need to do is get a little tray like this, like nurseries sell the lawn squares in, and fill it with soil, whether it's from your backyard or potting soil from the nursery. Then soak raw sunflower seeds that are still in their shells in water overnight. And for a tray this size, I soak about 2 cups of sunflower seeds. You can also use unhulled buckwheat seeds if you can find them. Usually you can find those in natural food stores, whereas these can be found in animal food stores as well. And then just take the seeds and sprinkle them over the entire surface of the soil and keep the soil moist by watering, either with a watering can or some other tool that makes it so you can finely mist the soil and don't ever just pour a stream of water because it just digs the dirt up. Before I make the salad, let me show you another plant that I grow in the kitchen in soil that I think almost every kitchen should have. This is the aloe vera plant. And it's a cactus that's really wonderful. It's good to have on hand for burns because when you get burned, you can just cut a leaf off and rub the healing juices onto the skin. You can also make really delicious and cooling drinks with this by cutting a chunk, say nearly a tablespoon large, and peeling it. Now when you peel the aloe vera like this, you're going to end up with a very clear gel. Some people I know have tasted the aloe plant like this and have found it really distasteful. What is distasteful is a yellow film that's right under the skin, but this clear part is virtually tasteless. And that's what they use to make this commercial aloe vera gel, which is sold in natural food stores. And of course, people use this gel for different reasons. You can use it on cuts or burns for soothing and to help the healing process, or you can take it internally. Just be sure you get the pure aloe vera. I usually put about 1 tablespoon of this gel or a rinsed off peeled chunk of this into a blender with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and ½ a tablespoon of honey. And then I need to blend 1 cup of sparkling water into that. And of course, we need to use chilled sparkling water. And then I don't even need any ice cubes. Just pour a cup in, and it's basically being blended to dissolve the honey. And then you have a cool, refreshing drink that also is an aid to digestion. The aloe vera plant has been used to even help people with ulcers heal their ulcers. Let me make the salad that will go into the falafels. Usually in the Mideast, they use lettuce and chopped up tomatoes and that sort of thing. I prefer to use sprouts because they are more nutritious. I'm starting off with 2 ounces of alfalfa sprouts. Now this is one that probably almost all of us are familiar with because I see them in all the supermarket produce sections now. This is a really nutritious and nice tasting sprout, and of course should not be cooked. It's much better when it's nice and crunchy and fresh. All of your sprouts that sprout like this are basically vegetables. They're not legumes anymore. This is radish, which gives a nice, hot, spicy flavor to the salad. And then I'm going to harvest just a few more of these sunflower sprouts, and this is how you harvest them. Just hold on to the top and harvest a handful. Now sometimes, let me find one to show you. Usually the hulls of the sunflower seed fall off, but sometimes you'll find one like this one in here. Can you see that? This one in here still has the hull hanging on the leaf. So it's a good idea to kind of look as you cut, pull any hulls off, and just rinse it. You don't have to wash it too thoroughly though, because these are really very fresh organic vegetables. It's nice growing sprouts because then you know for sure that they haven't been sprayed with any sort of harmful pesticide. And they're really the freshest vegetable you can get because you've harvested them yourself. Okay, and that's ½ a cup of avocado and 1 cucumber that's been sliced real thin. Now I'm ready to assemble a falafel sandwich for you. And of course, this whole sandwich is basically made with sprouts, except for the bread, of course. And I always am sure to buy the whole wheat pita breads in the store. They come in a circle, and you just cut the one edge off and open them up into a pocket. And then put usually about 3 falafel balls into the pocket, or more if you want, depending on how large the pita bread is. And into that, you want to put just a tiny handful of the fresh sprouts. And then you can top this off with the fresh, alive dressing. Or if you like, you can make a more traditional falafel dressing using sesame tahini, like this one here. I like to use the sesame tahini myself in a dessert. This is a really easy dessert to make, but it's nutritious because I'm using 2 tablespoons of sesame tahini, which is full of protein as well as calcium. Sesame seeds are a really good source of calcium. And to this I'll add 1½ teaspoons of honey for a little bit of sweetener. Doesn't have to be too sweet because this is going to go on top of dried fruit or in it. And this is a tiny pinch of lemon rind and half a teaspoon of lemon juice, and then only 1 teaspoon of a non-instant, non-fat milk powder. There. And then this gets mixed together till it forms a very loose sort of a fudge, like this. Now this mixture can either be added to the inside of a dried fruit, like a pitted date. You can stuff a pitted date with this. Or if you like, you can pat it on the outside of a dried fruit, like a fig. Just put a little bit of the mixture on it and pat it on like that for a quick dessert that's nutritious as well. This is just another version of that same dessert. This is a tahini fudge that I add a little carob to. This particular fudge is made with a 1/4 cup of raw sesame tahini, 2 tablespoons carob powder, 2 tablespoons of mashed moist pitted dates, a 1/4 cup of water, and 4 teaspoons of non-instant, non-fat milk powder. Now that gets mixed together and it forms, as you can see, a rather loose, moist batter, which is kind of fudgy, caroby tasting. And I use this moist batter to roll dried fruit into. Today I'm using a dried banana because it's such a nice taste combination between the sweet of the dried banana and the almost chocolatey flavor of the carob coating. Just roll the dried fruit, whichever you prefer to use, around in the caroby fudge mixture, and then roll it in some finely chopped nuts. And of course you can use any kind of nuts that you like. To make kind of a Hawaiian-y version of this, you can use chopped macadamia nuts. But peanuts are fine, or chopped roasted almonds. There, and that makes a really delicious dessert like that that's nutritious as well, either a dessert or a snack. Wipe my fingers off and just mention that you can add a 1/4 cup more of the non-instant, non-fat milk powder to this rather loose batter, and you'll end up with a candy that really does have a fudge consistency like this one. And you can put it in a pan, cool it, or let it sit at room temperature for a few hours, and cut it like this. Or you can make it into balls or different shapes. And if you like, you can roll it in nuts again, or just leave it as is. And so you have a much more fudgy textured candy here. Come and see the whole meal put together that we made today. Basically, this is a menu suggestion. You can serve the falafels, which were made, remember, from germinated garbanzo beans, along with featuring sprout salads and a live dressing inside of a pita bread or a pocket bread to make a delicious meal. And then, of course, you can top it off with one of our delicious desserts. Try this menu at home, and here's some food for thought.
The Chinese sage Lao Tzu wrote, 30 spokes converge upon a single hub. It is on the hole in the center that the use of the cart hinges. We make a vessel from a lump of clay. It is the empty space within the vessel that makes it useful. We make doors and windows for a room, but it is the empty spaces within that make the room livable. Thus, while the tangible part of a thing, that which can be perceived by the senses, exists, it is the intangible, that which cannot be perceived directly through the senses, that makes it valuable. From this thought, we can understand that it is the intangible spirit or soul within the material body that gives the body life. It is the presence of that life force that makes the body valuable and attractive.
To get your copy of Kathy's new 750-page cookbook, The Art of Dieting Without Dieting, send a check or money order for $21.95 plus $2 for postage and handling to Kathy's Kitchen, P.O. Box 1122, Glendale, California, 91209. If you prefer to use your MasterCard or Visa, call toll-free 1-800-331-6161.
Tonight on Nova, it's the biggest race since the space program. Who will be the first to find the elusive substance that will change the world forever? The race for the superconductor on Nova tonight at 7.